And we're back, Jonathan.
Yes, another episode of The Road to Code.
That's right. Just why don't we jump into the R2C merch or Road to Code merch, Jonathan?
All right. We have our merch on our Road to Code website. And on the homepage, we have this little menu that has official merch.
And that takes you to the place where people can go and buy some official R2C merch.
Yes, we have women's t-shirts, regular t-shirts, and coffee mugs.
Those are pretty cool. I like the coffee mug. But, not every up-and-coming developer, Jonathan, has the money to pay big bucks for this. Is there any way to get it for free?
All you have to do is go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/growingupjohn, all one word, and John is Jon, and subscribe to our Road to Code podcast channel. And we have a monthly raffle that you could enter to win. And all you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Wait a second. But you just said you have a monthly raffle. What if I want to win every month? If I could only subscribe once, how do I enter every month?
If you're already subscribed, all you have to do is comment, "Show me the merch."
Oh, so let me get this straight. If you have the big bucks, you go to theroadtocode.net and you click on the merch menu navigation, which will take you to our store to purchase. But if you're broke just like us, then you go over to youtube.com/growingupjohn and you subscribe. If you're already subscribed, you comment on any one of our videos. If you have nothing to say, you just say, "Show me the merch." And that'll just enter you into that monthly raffle to get free merch.
Yeah, all you have to do is that. And we're only shipping out to US residents.
For now. We'll expand. Once we become world famous developers, we'll expand worldwide shipping, right?
Yeah.
So just like that, huh? Whoa, what just happened?
We just got free merch.
We just got free merch? Oh my goodness. That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's get to the meat and potatoes of the podcast.
Let's do it. Let's get right into it, Jonathan. And we're going to start working on some validation that is well needed in the form that we created in our last episode. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen?
Let's learn some validations.
That's right. Let's go ahead and fire up Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. We're going to fire up both of them at the same time. Just do it. So let's start with the fact that we have a form, and we'll start at the very top of the file, right? We're using React. We're using useState, which basically manages our state, right? And we have this state that basically it's an object that holds the ID, the first name, the last name, the phone label, the email, and the email label. So that's our state, okay? That's the object that we want to populate. Mm-hmm. And what we're doing, starting at line 15, is we have this function that handles the change of the text box entry. So every time you click on a letter, on a number, every time you click a key on the keyboard, this handle change event executes. And we're taking the ID, which matches the name of the object. So the ID is first name. We're going to take that ID and we're going to push that value into our state. So that's essentially what we're doing with the set contact info. We're saying, hey, go and spread the contact info, make a copy of it, and then go and replace the key and the value in there. So if we're passing in the first name, the key happens to be first name, and then the value is whatever the value is at the time that you click on any key. And then if you go scroll down to line 22, you have a handle click which basically handles the submit. So when you click on the submit button, this is what executes. And all we're doing is just doing a simple console log so that we can see that we've populated the object with the information that we want. And we would do this just before we would send it over to the server. However, if you were to fire up, so go ahead and go to Visual Studio and fire up the Guntax application. Okay, and then go to create and open up the console or the inspection tools, debug tools. And if you just press submit, what happens? You're going to get an empty object, which is the initial state. This is not ideal to a good user experience because the user is going to say, well, I just submitted, but I submitted nothing. So it becomes a problem. You know what I mean? So really what we need to do is we need to add some validation and we need to specify that all these fields are required, but we also want to do it in a friendly manner, a manner that is intuitive to the user so that they know that something is missing, something's wrong. It's like you just can't go and submit an empty object to the backend and expect it to work. We as developers have to give that good user experience. So let's go ahead and close this tab here and fire up Chrome, and let's go and do a quick search. What we're going to search for is React validation example. And that first one, how to do simple form validation. Let's go ahead and open that up. So let's look at what they have here. They have an out-of-the-box form. And essentially what they said, give us an email address and give us a password. And they're showing an error up on top that says email is invalid, password is too short. And you'll see that the text boxes are surrounded by the Bootstrap error styling. So they conditionally put that styling on there if there's an error. So let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit and let's see exactly what it is that they do. Okay, so we've done this, right? npm install create React app. We already know that. And we've also created our React app. So we can go ahead and pass this portion. You can see where they've installed the Bootstrap down at the bottom. And so they installed Bootstrap and they installed React Bootstrap. So let's keep on scrolling. And they've also added some code for the form validation. So they've had some initial code, not much. Keep on going. Let's see what else they got. And here's the actual form itself. So you can play it, but we'll skip that part. Let's just keep on going. We can see here that they have a form, which is very similar to the one we have. Now, granted, they're using components. So you can see here where they have class form extends component. We're actually just using a function, a JavaScript function. But it's not to say that we can't make their example work. Their example doesn't make a whole lot of difference regardless whether they're using a component or they're using a function, which is what we're using. So they got their form, they have their label, they have their input, which is for an email, and then they have their input for a password, and they have the submit button. Very similar to what we have, right? Yeah. First name, last name, phone, and email. Let's keep on scrolling. Let's see what else they've added. So they have their props and they have their state. So we're doing state, but we're doing it a little bit different as prescribed for when you're using function app. We're actually using state versus using the state property within the component. So let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit more. So here we go. We have a value, which is the state email and the state password. So this value is what's being assigned in the text box. So in your code, you have value is equal to whatever our contact object is, right? So let's go ahead and scroll down to the onChange. So this is the event that they're using, and they're using handle user input. Their handle user input is doing nothing different than what we're doing. You can see where they're grabbing the target name, the target value, and they're setting their state. We're doing ours just a little bit different, but it's basically the same. Okay. Let's go ahead and keep on going down. So their original state has the email and a password, and look at what they've added. They've added form errors.
Yeah.
And the form error is an email and a password. And then also they've added 3 additional properties called email valid, password valid, and form valid. So if the email is valid, it'll say true, otherwise it's false. If it's empty, it's false, right? So we're going to have to add some information in here to be able to validate in our state. So let's go ahead and copy. I guess you could just go ahead and copy the last 4 lines and let's put that into our state. So yeah, so go ahead and add it after the email label. However, let's go ahead on the form error. Let's start a new line with the email. So put your cursor right before the email and put that on a new line. And then the same thing with password. And then go ahead and your curly brace on the next line. So essentially what we're doing is we have a nested object. So we have a form errors object inside of our state object. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
And what we want to do is we want to put the error message for each one of our email or object label. So in reality, what you can do is you can just go ahead and copy first name, last name, phone number, phone label, email, and email label. Just copy that whole section. And you can just go ahead and paste that right inside that form errors. So now if we have an error, we can put the message in there for each individual property of our object. Okay. We're going to need the same thing as we have email valid, password valid, form valid. So you could leave form valid, but go ahead and copy first name and label. You go ahead and copy the quotations as well. So essentially this serves 2 purposes, right? One, it tells us whether the form or each individual property is valid. And we can also put in the error that we're experiencing, right? And we decide what the error is in our code. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the handle change. Well, let's go back to the article. Let's see what that article indicates. If we scroll down, we're going to have, so they've added a panel, which would then be displayed if there's any errors.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and create a new file.
Error header.
Error header. I think that's what he's calling it. It's going to be a capital E, error, and then header, capital H. Let's go make sure that that's what he called it. Can we go back to Google really quick or to the Chrome? Form errors, actually. Let's rename it to form errors. Just goes to show our attention span is that of a gnat, you know? It's like all we did was switch from one window to the other. We forgot. And so this is going to be just like your edit context, right? Import React from React, and then it'll be a constant called form errors. Form headers, I guess. Or what does he have? Let's just move his code in there. So we're going to do the div class name, form errors. And yeah, we can just go ahead and copy that code. Let's scroll down a little bit. That big block of code. We can go ahead and copy that div. Copy the whole, oh yeah, everything inside the div. Really, you can just copy the div, the whole div. Perfect. So let's look at the code here for a moment and let's see what it is that he's requesting. He's got object keys form errors. Map field name. Okay. So let's go ahead and rename on line 6 form errors. Let's call it error list. And then on line 7, form error is also going to be error list. And on line A9, form errors is also going to be error list. And then inside the parenthesis in line 3, we're going to receive an error list. Yep, just like that. So now when we call this, we're going to pass the list of errors. So we're going to pass the error list. Okay. So let's go back to his code. And let's scroll down a little bit. Scroll up. Scroll up. And you see this right here, the div panel, not too far. You see that div class panel default form errors. So let's go ahead and copy that piece of code. And we're going to paste that into our edit context. So save this, what you got. And then go over to edit contact. And let's paste this. Let's go down to the return section. And let's paste this. I believe he has it towards the top. So why don't we go up? Okay, let's paste it inside the container, create a new row after line 42. So we're going to create a new div with the new class name role, and then another div inside with that represents a column, you know, the whole column, row column. So you see how we're saying form errors. That form errors, we're going to rename that to error list, the green one, the green form errors. Let's put error list. You see on line 46 where it says this.state.form errors,
Yeah.
we're going to replace it with contact.info.form errors. So this right here is essentially we're passing in an error list through the contact.info.form errors. And that form errors is that form errors form that you created. Go ahead and, oh, why do we have an error here? Why is it complaining? It complained after you put that class name in there.
These parentheses. There we go.
Oh, nice. Fine, Jonathan. Hire this man already, will you? How did you figure that one out? Let's share with the kids.
Oh yeah. Well, I just noticed that the quotes that he had were like similar ones, but they looked like just like that.
Oh, wow. Good catch. I would have been spinning my wheels on this one. Cool. Let's go ahead and save this. So on line 46, we're calling the form errors component, right? So let's go over to your form error component on the next tab. And so we call this, and we're passing in the form errors. And what we're doing is we're saying, okay, hey, we're going to receive the form errors, but we're going to receive it as an error list. So we're just saying the name of this is going to be the error list. And what they do is they go through each object key and they call map, which is basically going to go through every single field and go in and display it on the form itself. So does that make sense so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's look at an example. Let's go to Chrome and go ahead and open up the tools, the debug tools, and let's create an object. Go to the console. Let's create an object in here. We'll just say bar O equals Now press enter. Okay, perfect. So press O and then enter. Yeah, you see how the name comes up. So we can do O dot first name and then press enter. And it displays John, right? Let's go back and look at that code just for a moment on your Visual Studio Code. Look at what they're using. They're using a key list. And what they're using is the field name, but they're using it inside of brackets. Let's go back to the console for a moment and let's see what exactly this code is doing. Let's type in O, but instead of a period, put a square bracket, open it up with a square bracket. And yep, inside of that, you're going to go ahead and put first name and then close it off with the square bracket and press enter.
Okay.
You see how what's going on here? So what they're doing is they're just saying, hey, for each, let's go back to your code for a moment and let's go look at the state. Let's go to the edit contact and look at state. Go all the way to the top. So what they're doing is they're taking the form error object and they're going through each one of the properties and displaying the error that we've stuck in there. So as we haven't validated yet, we haven't written the code for that, but they're basically just taking that form errors object. We called it error list in that form errors div. And what they're saying is it's like, we're going to iterate through each one of these properties. We don't know which ones they are. We don't know what we have. We just know that we have properties in there and we're going to go through each one of those and we're going to display whatever value is inside of those quotations.
Okay.
So that's essentially what it's doing, what that code is doing. Let's go back to the form errors. They're doing that through object.keys on line 6. They're saying, convert all those keys into an array. And then we're going to go ahead and iterate and we're going to display all those values inside that array. So they're converting that object to an array, essentially, is what's happening.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool the way that they did this, but you can see where it's going to start getting messy here pretty soon. All right, let's go back to that article and let's see where they're at. What else do we need to add? Oh, look at this. Now we got this.validate field and they're passing in the name and the value and they have this method called validate field. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Oh boy, look at all this code.
What are these?
I'm going to mention the name, but we're not going to get into the discussion because that is a whole different programming language in itself. It's called regular expression. And essentially, these are patterns that you want an email to match.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a way of regular expressions is basically just another, almost another programming language, so to speak, that basically allows you to pattern match. And they're saying, hey, you know, this is what this email should match. And essentially it's letters, an @ sign, and then more letters, and then a dot. And then if you scroll over to the right, it'll probably say like three or two. Yeah, 2 more letters. And so there's no limitation to the number of letters that you can include in the first section before the @ sign. And there's no limitation to the number of letters after the @ sign. And then a period, and there's no limitation, but a minimum of 2 at least for whatever's after the period. So John at theroadtocode.net. It has at least 2 characters after the dot. So that's essentially what that pattern is representing. And if it doesn't match that pattern, then it's considered invalid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're actually going to use that in our example. We're just going to go ahead and take this. So let's go to the top of this block of code. Let's go ahead and copy that whole method, validate field. And so, yeah, let's go over to your edit contacts. That's where it's going to go essentially. And so what we're going to do is we're going to paste it after line 39. So after line 39, we're going to need a new couple of lines and then paste it in there. Validate field on line 41. We need to do that constant validate field equals, and then after the parenthesis, it'll be the fat arrow function. Actually, that validate form is a separate. Can we go back to his code, to his example for a moment? Yeah, that validate form is a separate method. So let's go ahead and let's go back to your code for a moment. And okay, I see. So line 62 actually needs to be unindented. And so validate form is also going to turn into a fat arrow function. Cool. Okay, so let's go start with validate field. Let's go ahead and scroll up a little bit. There's a lot of code that we added, huh?
Yeah.
So here, validate field. They are calling this from the handle change. So let's scroll up a little bit. Okay, so after set contact, we're going to start a new line. And we're going to call validate field. Perfect. So that's going to call validate field, okay? And so validate field receives a field name and the value. So whatever value we pass in doesn't necessarily need to match the names. We can rename them when we receive them as a parameter. So let's scroll down a little bit. And what we're going to need to do is starting with line 44 and 45, we need to go and do a let email value, let first name valid, let last name valid. We need to do a let for each one of the ones that we have up above.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So all they did was just basically transfer all that to all these objects, right? So we're going to switch on the field name. And so the field name is the parameter that comes on line 42, right? And we're going to say, in case it's email. Okay, so what's happening is that it sets the email valid to match the value of the regex, the regular expression. And once it sets it, it's going to set it to true or false. It says, does it match the pattern or not? It's going to be a true or false at that point. And it says field validation error dot email, which is, we got the field validation errors, right? It says, if the email is valid, then give me an empty string. Don't do anything. Otherwise, you're going to say, this is invalid. So it's going to look at the field and it's just going to put invalid. And then we break and we continue on with the next one. So we need to put a case for each one of those fields in there. So we need to do it for first name, for last name. So once we get all that, then what we do is we need to go and update our state. So if we go look at the handle change, how do we update our state? Let's go look at that. So this would be set contact info, right? So let's go ahead and copy line 34. And we're going to change it. We're going to use it, but we're going to change it. So let's go down to where it says set state under validate field. This is painful. Yeah, let's keep on going down. Go ahead and keep on going down. Right there, 79, set state. So let's start a new line after 78, and let's see what they got going on here. So go ahead and paste what you got. Okay. So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to separate out everything into its own line. So the 3 periods between the curly brace and the 3 periods, put that in a new line. And then after the comma, put that in the new line. Form errors, validation form errors. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to replace that key and value. Just go ahead and get rid of the square brackets all the way to val. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to say form errors, colon, dot, 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 form validation errors. Form validation errors.
Let's field validation errors. Like that.
Oh, I think it is field validation errors. I think you're right.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it doesn't like the dot, dot, dot. So go ahead and get rid of the dot, dot, dot. Okay. And then go ahead and between the S and the curly brace, go ahead and press enter. And let's go back to the end of line 81, do a comma. Go ahead and press enter. And we're going to have to do first name valid, colon, first name valid. Password, last name valid, colon, last name valid. So we need to do for each one of those. But I wonder if there's a shortcut that we can use. Go ahead and get rid of that first name for a moment. I think we can copy and paste a bunch of stuff and then replace it. So scroll up a little bit. Let's copy. Scroll up all the way to the top. Let's copy lines 22 through line 26. And then go ahead and copy first name valid and replace false. The same thing with the next one. So what we're doing is we're just saying these fields are being replaced with these values, and we set those values in that switch statement. Let's go look at his code. I want to see where he's setting that, this dot valid form. Oh, that's being called after the fact. Got it. Let's go back to your code. And let's go down to that validate field method. And we need to add, but before, okay, so scroll up just a tiny bit. I want to go right there. Lines, after line 78, give me a new line. And we're going to say var valid form. And here's where we're going to have to do some more cut and paste. So let me see, do a control V. Do you still have all those values in there? Oh, you don't. Okay, let's go up to the top and copy the first name valid, all that stuff. And I'm doing this on purpose because this is painful. And this is where we need to go through this painful process in order to appreciate frameworks and libraries that are available to us to make this easier. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and indent 80 through 86. And you're going to replace the colon, the false, and the comma with double ampersands. This is something new here. I'll explain to you what's going on. So if I tell you, Jonathan, your car needs to have fuel and your tires need to be inflated in order for you to be able to drive your car efficiently. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between and or, right? I can say, Jonathan, you need to have fuel in your car or air in your tires in order for your car to be able to roll. But that's not true. And means that both have to be true, which means you have to have fuel and you have to have air in your tires. If either one of those is not true, then the whole statement is true.
Mhm.
So here, what we're saying, the variable valid form, if any of these are false, the whole thing is false. In other words, your form is in an invalid state. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So on line 88, set contact. Let's scroll down to the bottom of that. And after line 96, we say form valid. Is that, can you scroll down a little bit more? I want to see what's at the end of this. Yeah. So validate, is it validate form? Oh, validate form. State form valid. Yeah. So after line 96, you're going to say form valid equal or colon form valid. So we're saying go assign the valid form valid value to the form valid field. And we can get rid of 99 through 102. And you can also get rid of 102 through 104. Oof, man, that was a lot of work, huh?
Yeah.
Imagine you have to do this for every single form you create.
Wow.
What a pain in the ass, huh?
Yeah.
But let's make sure that this even works. Let's run it, save it and run it. Remember, you'll need to run it from Visual Studio. Once it loads, we'll open up the debugging tools. Well, there you go. Then you have that problem. So this is saying that on line 62, phone is not defined. Let's go check what line 62 is. Let's see, save it and go back.
Oh,
Oh
there we go.
gosh, wow.
Oh.
Oh, there we go.
Label
Line 62,
2.
62, position 52. Let's go look at that. Oh, okay. So you see how you have phone.valid on line 62? It's just phone valid. On line 62, you see, it's just phone valid. And then get rid of the valid on the before the equal sign, get rid of valid. All right, let's try that again. Oh, okay. Did it work? Oh, now what's wrong with it? So phone label is undefined. So let's go look at 6517.
I think this dot. This is dot now.
Oh, you had a dot in there?
There's a dot.
Oh. Yeah, check, make sure you don't have any more dots. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're good. Let's go back and let's try to run it again. I'm really impressed that you're able to debug these problems now. That's cool. Oh,
Form valid.
let's see. Line 86. Let's go look at line 86. Do me a favor. Let's get rid of line 86 and move the semicolon up to the previous line because we got a redundancy there. And get rid of the double ampersand. And then instead of on line 79, instead of valid form, let's put form valid. And let's make sure that at the bottom of line 88, as we go down to the bottom of that, form valid. Okay, yeah, that's what we want. Let's go ahead and save this and try it again. New errors means that we're making progress, Jonathan. Oh,
6.
line 106. Form errors is not defined. Line 106.
Form errors.
Oh, because you know why? If you go to your form errors component, you need to export that form errors. And then put a semicolon and then save that and go back to your edit contacts and make sure that you're importing it at the top here. Yep, there it is. Going to save this and let's go back and run it again.
All right.
Is it actually working?
I think so.
Holy smoke. Okay, so let's go look at the console and go ahead and press submit right now. See what happens.
Oh,
What happened to our validation? Are we even calling our validation? Let's go back and look at our, scroll down to the handle change.
validate.
Handle change. Oh, you know why? Let's go down to your button. In here, after line 171, give me a new line. We're going to say enabled equals, and then inside of curly braces, contact info form valid. Yep. Let's go ahead and save this and let's go back and refresh that page.
Nope.
Are you able to click on that?
Yeah, I just clicked on it.
And it lets you, huh? Interesting. Okay, let's go back to, oh, is it a lowercase form or an uppercase form? Let's try that again. Uh-oh, we got an error.
False for non-Boolean attribute enabled.
Warning, receive false for non-Boolean enable. How about get rid of the D and enable? Just say enable.
No. Same thing.
Oh, wait a second. Let me see here. Oh, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and open up Chrome and let's look at React. Go ahead and do a search for React disable button. Oh, maybe it's the disable keyword. React disable button. How to disable button in React?
Button.
Oh, it's disabled. Okay. So you'll notice that there's an exclamation point. So let's go back to your code and say disabled. I thought it was enabled. Disabled, but what we need to do is we need to put an exclamation point on contact info. What we want to do is we want to say true, which means that the bang is called exclamation, the bang reverses the value. So if the form is invalid, in other words, form valid equals false, the bang says disable this true. Let's try that. Save it and let's try to run this.
Oh, it won't let me click it anymore.
So now you can't even get to the form. Let's refresh this. Let's make sure we're getting rid of that error.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure we don't got any errors. Okay, cool. So now you've completely disabled the opportunity for the user to submit an empty form.
Mm-hmm.
So the now is like, oh, I guess I have to fill something in, you know? So go ahead and start typing in some information. Uh-oh, we got some errors coming up. Oh, cannot read property undefined reading state. Oh, so let's go to line 44. Obviously, we missed one of the states. So go to line 44.
Oh.
And you're going to replace this dot state with the contact info. All right, save that and let's try it again. Different errors means just progress.
Progress is being made.
That's right.
All right. All right.
All right. So now let's just go back to your last name and get rid of all but one letter. And then go ahead and tab to the next one. And okay, so we haven't validated. So let's go back to the code here. Validate field. Where are we calling validate field? You're scrolling. Go to the handle change event or to the handle change method. So validate field, scroll down just past handle click, validate field. Okay. And we're grabbing all this information. Well, guess what, Jonathan? We're going to have to debug why this is not working. So what we're going to need to do is after line 43, press enter and type in debugger and then finish it off with a semicolon. This forces Chrome to go into debugging mode.
All right.
And so it's going to stop right there and we'll be able to step through each one of these lines. So let's go see what's happening. Just type in one letter. All right. Where is our code? Go ahead and press play. And then type in a second letter. Oh, there we go. Now it's there. What we want to do is we want to do the step over, which is the second button. Step over. Okay, and then step over. Now, look at the scope under local. Look what we got. The field name, which is a parameter that we received, is first name. And as we're going through it, you see the value is JO. And we're going to go through it and it's going to start populating some of this information. So field validation error, field validation errors. Okay, those are being populated. So what is contact? Can you hover over contact info? Contact info up on top.
Oh,
Your code, hover over contact info.
contact.
Okay, so that's our object so far. Okay, very cool. That's good. That's good. Okay, so let's go ahead and step over. Step over. So we're going to step over each one of these lines. Okay, so we're going to go one at a time. And you'll see how the values on the bottom are being assigned. They're going from undefined to having a value.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing that each one of these is actually getting some kind of value. So go ahead and step over. Okay, email valid. Okay, go ahead, step over. All right, so everything except form valid and this is undefined. Okay, so let's step over. And so the case here is that the field name is first name. So let's go ahead and step over this. Field name. Oh, wait a second. Field name. So the field name value is true now. Okay, that's cool. Field validation errors. Go ahead and step over. Okay, and let's expand field validation errors down at the bottom window. Let's expand that. Okay, so that name is valid. That's good. Okay, at this point, Jonathan, let's go ahead and let it play because your name is, the first name is valid. So go ahead and let it play.
Okay.
And go to your last name and just type in one letter. All right, and let's step through it again. We want to see, go ahead and step over. And step over, and step over, and step over, and step over. Go ahead, step over again. And then go ahead and step over again. Now it's going to go into the last name because that's what's being passed in. Go ahead. Okay, so last name valid is required. So we actually have an error message under field validation errors. We got is required, right? So last name is not valid. So let's go ahead and step over. And let's step over. Form valid. What is form valid? Form valid is false. So our form is in an invalid state. Okay, so we're going to set the contact info. We're going to expand on the contact info. We're going to, what is validation errors? Validation errors, form errors. Can you go back to your code for a moment? And let's go to our state, to our model. I want to see what is at the very top. What does our model look like? So we got form errors that we need to populate. Okay, let's go back to the debugger. So form errors is being populated on line 92, and that's being populated by the form validation errors. Okay, which is good. That's exactly what we need. And go ahead and step over. Oh, okay. Go ahead and let it run. We're not getting our error panel. So let's go ahead and go back to the code. And let's go to the form errors. We need to investigate some stuff. So after line 3, put a debugger in there. And let's go back to Chrome and let's refresh. Oh, okay, we're here. Okay, great. So let's look at the error list. Hover over the error list. Well, actually down at the bottom, you see expand error list. And expand the error list. Oh, got it. So you see how it's error list, error list?
Oh, yeah.
So what are we sending in? Let's go back in the stack for a moment. Okay, so let's go back to edit contact and go to your code. And let's go down to where we're displaying that the form errors. It'll be in the return. Yeah, right here. So form errors. Form errors. Okay, let's go. So apparently what we're doing is we're passing in a double nested object. So let's go see how we're assigning it in the validation, field validation. So field validation errors. So let's put a debugger on line 89. Just type in debugger and on line 89. Yeah, so we're going to save that and let's go back. Oh, yeah, let it run again. And go ahead and type in a number in the phone number. Okay, let's go ahead and let it run. Okay, right here. So what is form validation? Can you hover over form validation error? So that's there. Oh, got it. Okay, let's go to your code. And let's put 3 dots in front of field validation errors. And then get rid of the debug. Oh, why is it doing that? Get rid of the debugger. Let's see. Let's go ahead and put curly braces around the 3 dots and field validation errors. Okay. And let's go ahead and remove the debugger up on top and get rid of the empty line. And let's save this and let's run it again. I want to make sure that we're actually expanding those objects. So go ahead and let it run and then refresh this page. Go ahead and let it run. Okay, go ahead and let it run. Okay, so let's go ahead and type in just the first letter of your name. Okay, what is error? Can you hover error list? Okay, good. This is what we want. Error list. Oh, we still got error list. What the heck? Why is it being assigned that way? Interesting. Let's change the code so we can make this work. This is just a nuance. Let's go over to the form errors component. And let's go ahead and change that error list to form errors. Go ahead and rename that parameter to form errors. And then replace debugger with bar error list equals form error list. So that'll fix that problem. I don't know why it's doing that though. So let's save this. And let's go back to, yeah, let's go ahead and try this. Let's go ahead and save this and let's go back, let it run or refresh it.
Well,
Oh, okay. Go back to the code. I know it's wrong. So you copy form errors, copy that form errors. It's lowercase f, by the way.
oh,
Yeah, go ahead and copy that form errors. And then let's go save this and let's go back to the edit contact component. And then where we're on the render, go down to the return where we're going to display that. That error list needs to be called form errors. So just go ahead and paste that in there. Yep, there we go. Give that a gander. What is it complaining about?
form errors.
Cannot convert undefined or null objects. Huh, interesting. Let's go ahead and put the debugger back in there so that we can step through the code. In the form errors, go to the form errors and put the debugger back in there. And let's go ahead and save this and run it again. Go ahead and expand form errors down at the bottom. Form errors, form errors. Oh, so it's we have to call it form errors dot form errors and assign it to the error list. Okay, yeah, yeah. Get rid of the debugger. This should work now. Yeah. So let's reload it. We need to stop it and reload it.
Okay, it's thinking too much.
These are the problems of debugging right here, man. This is where, as developers, we get paid to figure these things out. Sometimes they're a pain to figure out. Yeah. Go ahead and just click one letter.
First name is required.
Okay. Type in the second letter.
There
All
we go.
right. Let's go to the next one.
Last name is required.
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. Let's go to the next one.
Phone is invalid.
All right. Go ahead and give it a valid number. Ooh, phone is invalid. How many is that? Oh,
There you
okay. Okay, got it.
Okay. Email.
So give it an invalid email. So until you put in a valid one, it's going to give you that. So go ahead and put in a valid one now. And yeah, and so let's go ahead and put something in there.
There we go.
And now we can submit. Let's look at the console. But what a pain in the ass this. Oh, wait a second. What happened? Oh, there it is. Okay. But what a pain in the ass. Oh, wait a second. We didn't get our values.
There's no values.
What happened to our values? So Jonathan, let's focus on the fact that this example that we went off of is not going to work for us. And the reason it's not going to work for us is because we're using a function component. The example, can you go back to Chrome for a moment? The example that we have is actually using a React component. In other words, it inherits from React component, which has a completely different life cycle. And what I mean by a life cycle, right? So if you take the actual word life cycle, it's how it's born and how the object dies. Okay. So a component, when it gets created, it actually lives for a while, even after it gets rendered to the screen. It lives in memory in JavaScript. And so there's a life cycle. And every time you update state, just like it shows right here, this dot state, every time you update that particular property in the component, the render executes again and it re-renders the component. Let's go back to our example. What we're using is a functional component, which means that it starts on line 4. It never keeps it in memory. All it does is just return HTML. So what happens is that once it returns HTML, this component goes out of memory. It doesn't matter what you do, it leaves. The handle change, the set contact that we're using with useState is what recalls this component to execute it again. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to call, if you expand line 30, on line 34, we're trying to call set contact info, which basically is updating our state, which is contact info. And if we go ahead and collapse line 5, and then we'll go down to collapse line, that one, and then go down to validate field. And here, we're also trying to update state. If you scroll down to the bottom, here's where we do set contact info, right? So we're trying to update it again within one call, which it's not the way it works in a function component, because there is no proper life cycle. It runs through the code beginning to end and then returns HTML and then leaves memory. So it's a lot lighter. It's a lot lighter to use. It's a lot more efficient to use, but you do need to use the hooks, and the hooks are things like the use state. So let's go back and collapse this method for a moment. 42, yeah. Now on handle click, can you go ahead and expand handle click? Handle click, we really haven't done anything with it, right? We've only done the handle change. And so we're still waiting to do the handle click. So let's go ahead and collapse that and expand handle change. So in here, we can update our state one time, and then the hook kicks in. The hook will go and say, hey, we're recalling this component and we're going to go ahead and execute it again. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to update it twice on line 34. And then when it calls validate field, it's trying to update it again within the same call. And so that's not how useState works. So what we're going to have to do, and this is completely wrong to do, but we're just going to go ahead and do it this way for now, just to see it work. All the code that you have in validate field, we need to move it to line 33. So we actually need to move all the code. So if you expand 42, and yep, all this right here, but let's do something first. Let's rename that field name to key. So right click on it. Oh, Control Z first. Yeah, let's right click on it. Do we have a rename? Go ahead and do a rename symbol. And good, look, it actually switched it on line 51. And then let's do the same thing with value on line 42. Right click on it, rename the symbol to val. And the reason we wanted to do this is because we're going to cut all this code and we're going to paste it on line 33. So let's go and start with line 43. And we're going to copy all the way down. So go ahead and highlight this as well, all the way down to the end of this method. And we can go ahead and get rid of line 33. So you can go ahead and highlight it and just press enter a couple of times. And then go ahead and paste it in here. And then give me an enter, a blank line. And we can get rid of line 91 and 92. We won't need those. Yeah. Okay. So let's go. Let's see. We got contact info. Oh, can you control Z for a moment? Comment those out for now. We might need.
Oops.
All right. So let's go scroll up a little bit, and let's talk about what's happening here. Go ahead and get rid of an empty line 33 or 34. Okay, so we got line 31 and 32. We're getting the ID and the value. So those are the keys, right? The key and the value. And then we go and we say, hey, we got form errors. We got first name valid, last name valid, phone valid, et cetera, right? So we're setting up our variables so that we can use them. So let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit. And here, based on the key, we're gonna go and say, if this is a first name, we're gonna go set first name valid if it's greater than 2 characters long. Otherwise, we set it as an error. We do that for last name. We do that for phone label, for email label. We go all the way down. And then we say, go ahead and set the form valid. In other words, is the whole form valid? But it's only valid if everything is valid, right? And then we say, okay, go and update our contact info. And so here, what we're going to need to do, we're going to have to add a comma after contact info. And then inside the comma, we're going to put inside of square brackets, we're going to put key. And then we're going to, outside the square bracket, we're going to do a colon. And we're going to say val. And so that'll set the field for the contact info. And then it'll also set our form validation information. So basically all we did is we took the code from that method and we just stuck it in here, which is the wrong thing to do. If your method goes beyond the size of your screen, the real estate that you have on your screen, it's too big. It's too big because we don't know, our mind is not capable of memorizing all the code that is up on top. You know, so we'd have to be scrolling up and down and try to figure out. So this is absolutely wrong. And the reason I want to do this is because the framework that I want to implement, that we're going to use in our next episode, simplifies this process so much. You know, it's like the work that we've done here is all done through the framework itself. And so, you know, just it's a point that I'm trying to make, is that the validation that we need to implement here is just completely, it's too complicated and we have to simplify it. And if we're going to simplify it, then we might as well just go ahead and create a framework out of it. You know what I mean? A library that can be reused over and over and minimizes your code so that we don't have to have this huge method for every single form that we're going to create. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's run it. Let's see if it works this first time around. It may not work. We may have to do some changes. Go ahead and open up your console on that. And let's go ahead and type in one letter first at a time. Oh, it actually worked. Go ahead and type in O. Okay, go to the next one. Do one letter first. Oh, it actually works. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Wow. Can you press submit right now? Is it still?
That's still grayed.
It's still grayed out. Okay. This is working pretty good, actually. All right. There you go. Let's hit submit.
Oh, I can't.
What's oh, phone is invalid. Yeah, that's still working. Okay. And there's our object, which wasn't appearing before. So in essence, the life cycle being different, we can't update state more than once. You probably could, but we need to include more hooks. And it's just going to be more work, and at a certain point, you got to kind of just throw in the towel and say, we need to create a library, a reusable library that is going to help us reduce our code and reuse the bigger portion of the code. And that's really the whole point of this exercise. It's not that you can't, it's just that it's a lot of work, a lot of typing, it's prone to mistakes. If you got to type that same information over and over and over, you're going to be copying and pasting. The moment you find an error in one, that means you got to go fix the error in all the places where you've implemented the copy and paste of this code. And chances are you're going to miss it, which is why you don't want to do it this way. The other thing that we're missing is the little red box.
Oh, when there's an error.
Where there's an error, exactly. And that in itself is a problem as well. But we'll go ahead and skip that part for now. In our next episode, what I want to do is we're actually going to get into a library that is very popular in the React community, and it's called Formik, Formik. And Formik does everything that we just did, probably exactly the same, in addition to some extra bells and whistles, but they do it in such a neat way that all we need to do is include property information, and they do it very cleanly for us. So we'll cover that in the next episode. All right. So until next time.
Peace out.
Peace.